Hello everyone. In this lesson we're going to install MySQL or MySQL onto your Windows computer. If you're a Mac user, you can skip ahead to the next video. But if you're using Windows, this video is for you. So in order to have a local database on our computer that Laravel can work with, we're going to install the MySQL database system. So if you're using Windows, this is what you do. I want you to visit the official MySQL website. So it's mysql.com. If you Google for MySQL, this should be the first real non-sponsored result. From the official website, I want you to click on Downloads up in this top navigation menu here. From this screen, I'm going to scroll down or look down the page a bit. And we're not interested in any of these links, but if you scroll down just a little bit more, towards the bottom of this main column content, we see MySQL Community GPL Downloads. This is the link I want us to click. Cool, and then since this laptop is using Windows, I'm going to click on this link that says MySQL Installer for Windows. Let's click that. Okay, cool, and then we just want to download this Windows MSI installer. So let's click the blue download button. From this screen, it's a little bit confusing. You have to scroll down to the very bottom and click no thanks, just start my download. Cool, so you can see down here my file is downloading. That should take just a minute. I will edit out the waiting part for you. Cool, so once it finishes, just go into your computer's downloads folder, and I'm just going to double click that downloaded MySQL file. I'm going to click yes, I want to allow it. Click yes again. From this screen, you absolutely could just leave this default choice selected, but I'm actually going to click Custom because we only need to install two things. So with Custom selected, I'll click Next. And the only two things we need to select is the MySQL server itself. So in this first option, I'm going to click the plus to expand this. Click into MySQL server. We want the newest version, so the highest version number. Let's expand that one. All of these different versions, I just want the newest, so I'll click this one. And then you do, with it selected, want to click this green arrow to move it over to the right side, right? Products to be installed. Cool, so that's the first item. The other item we want is something called MySQL Workbench. So in this list of products, if we collapse that MySQL server, we can then go into this applications, if we expand that. Perfect, we see the first one, MySQL Workbench. Let's expand that. I want the newest version. So this top version, the highest or newest version number, select it, and then just click the arrow to put it over to the right side. Cool, this is all we need. MySQL Server and MySQL Workbench. From this point, we can just click Next. Click Execute. Okay, and now this will take a minute to download. I believe it can be up to 400 to 500 megabytes. So if your internet connection is a bit slow, you might need to go take a break while your computer finishes downloading these files. Okay, but once both of the downloads finish, then we can click the Next button. They're both ready to install, so we can click the Execute button. This should be very quick, so you can see right now it's installing SQL Server. So SQL Server is the MySQL database system itself. It will just run in the background automatically when you start up your computer. Workbench is a graphical user interface program that we can just point and click to interact with the database server. So Workbench is just one of many, many different ways that you can connect to the database server. In addition to Workbench, you can just use the command line. You can also use a PHP application like Laravel, which is exactly what we're going to do in the next video. But for now, let's go ahead and click Next. It's ready to go. We can click Next again. We can absolutely just leave the default options selected on this screen. Click Next. Let's again use the default selection. Just click Next. Choose a root password. I'm just going to choose root as my password. So repeat. So it's root. There's nothing special about that. I'm just making it up. You can choose whatever password that you can easily remember. Just to be clear, this is not connected to any sort of online or cloud account. This is 100% just local on your personal computer. Then let's go ahead and click Next. Again, I'll leave the default options. Click Next. Click Execute. It should finish very quickly here. Cool, and it's done. So we can go ahead and click finish, and then we can click next, and finally finish. Beautiful. So at this point, the MySQL server is actually up and running in the background on our computer. Now it's just a matter of you and I actually connecting to it so that we can create a new database for Laravel to work with. Now, my computer automatically opened MySQL Workbench for me. Maybe yours did too. If it didn't, you can just go into your Start menu, right? And just search for Workbench, MySQL Workbench, and go ahead and open up that application. In MySQL Workbench, I want you to click from this home screen, this MySQL Connections. There should be sort of a starter default one that says Local Instance MySQL 80. We can click on that to try to connect to our own local database server, and then it's going to ask for your password. So remember, I chose a password of root. You can go ahead and click Save Password in Vault so you don't have to enter the password every time, and click OK. From this screen, this is a little bit confusing, I know. This interface is not the best. It needs to be updated, but it is what it is. In the left-hand side, you can see Administration is selected. I actually want you to click this item that says Schemas instead. So as soon as I click Schemas, you can see this area changes. And now this is where we can easily create new databases. So your local MySQL database server can have many different databases, right? So you can have 100 different databases for local Laravel projects. You could have 100 different databases for WordPress projects, so on and so forth. So right now, here's what I want you to do. In this empty area under Schemas, I want you to right click and click Create Schema. So schema is just another word for database. So we're creating a new empty database, create schema. Let's give it a name. So in this area, let's name it Our Laravel App. And then just click Apply. From this screen, we can absolutely just click the Apply button at the very bottom. Then click Finish. Cool. And now over in the left-hand menu, you might need to click the refresh arrows, but it should just already appear, right? Our Laravel App. That's our first database that we just created. So you can click this arrow to expand it. We don't have any tables at the moment, but in the future, we'll have one table for users, one table for blog posts, one table for keeping track of who follows who. Cool. Just to practice, let's go ahead and create one more database. So you can right click in this empty area, click Create Schema, and just name it, Please Delete Me. And then click Apply. Click Apply down here. And then Finish. Cool. So I just want you to be aware that you can create as many different databases as you want. It's not like you can only have this one named Our Laravel App. So you're free to do whatever you want with your local MySQL database server. Cool. Now, connecting to the database server like this using Workbench, that's one option. But before we close out this video, I want to show you the most timeless and classic way of interacting with MySQL, and that is through your command line. Now, before we can access it through the command line, we're going to need to add it to our user or environment path variable. So do this with me. First of all, let's find physically where on our computer MySQL lives. So go into your File Explorer and then click this PC. Then go into your C or primary drive. Let's go into Program Files. And just to be clear, there's Program Files and Program Files x86. Just go in Program Files without the x86. From here, you have a folder called MySQL. And then go into MySQL Server. And then in this folder, there's a folder called bin. So this is the folder that we want to point towards in our system environment path variable. So let me show you what I would do. In the Start menu, just search for variables, right? We want this option called Edit the System Environment Variables. You might remember we did this when we installed PHP to the command line as well. So let's click that option. And then down here, you would click Environment Variables. And then down in this bottom half of the screen, I would click on Path. This one named Path is the one we're interested in, and then click Edit or double click it. Cool. So you can see down at the bottom, we've already added PHP, we've already added Composer. So let's just add on a new empty row, or you can click New, but we just want to add. And then instead of typing it in, here's what you can do. In the Explorer window where we navigated to that folder, you can just click in the address area, copy that text into your clipboard, and then back on the system environment variable screen, when you're creating the new item, just paste that in. Cool. So you can press enter and then click OK. And then from this screen, this is very important. Do not just click the X to close this screen. You must actually click the OK button down at the bottom here. But as soon as we click OK, let's test this out. So what I want you to do is open up your Windows terminal. So if you open up the Start menu and just start typing for terminal, it should be the first suggestion. Okay, and now because we added MySQL to our path, we can do this. And if you already had terminal open, you might need to close it and then just open it up again fresh. But essentially, we can say MySQL, right, MySQL, and then a space, -u, and then we want to use the root user, and then we want to give it a password, so -p. So if you need to pause the video to type in this exact command with me, you can, but this is going to let us log in or get permission to connect to the server. So you can press enter. It's going to ask for your password. So you would, mine is root, but just type in your password. Again, not your Windows password, but this is the MySQL account password you chose a few minutes ago. Just enter that in, and congratulations, you have connected to the database server from the command line. You probably feel like an elite hacker right now, but now we can give it MySQL commands, right? So you could say show databases, and you do need to end that with a semicolon, but you can press enter, and it lists all the different databases, right? So there you see our Laravel app, you see please delete me. Really quick, just for the fun of it, let's practice adding a new empty database from the command line. So we can say, you should probably use all capitals, but technically it'll work even if you use lowercase. But we can say create database, and let's just make up a funny name like, super quick test. Go ahead and end that with a semicolon and then press enter. Cool. So now if you say show databases again, semicolon, there you see the new one, right? Super quick test. Now you can go back into Workbench just to confirm. You can click this refresh arrow right about here. And there you see the new one that we created from the command line. So the reason I wanted you to be familiar with this is because in many different tutorials on the internet, for example, if you independently do a little bit of research and you want to know how to do something in a MySQL database, many tutorials will give you instructions through the command line like this. So once you enter into this MySQL command prompt, there are all sorts of different commands you can run to create tables, to add indexes, to add fields or columns, so on and so forth. So I just wanted you to have this in your toolbox. You don't need, I want to make that clear, you absolutely don't need to use the command line like this. It's just a very common thing that many developers like to do. Cool. Now, if you want to exit out of the MySQL command prompt, you can just type exit, press enter, and you're back to the default Windows shell. Cool. Now in the next video, we're going to do the same thing, but for Mac users. But in the video after that, we're going to learn how to connect our Laravel application to this empty database, right? The one that we named our Laravel app. And trust me, that is when things are going to get truly powerful and truly real world. A database is what really brings things to life. I'm so excited to jump in that with you. Let's keep things rolling, and I will see you in the next lesson.